right, I think we are live. Hopefully, you guys can all hear me. Happy New Year to all of you. Hope your 2023 is off to a good start so far. And I just wanted to do another live stream here. And like all of them, I'm just going to be doing this for about 2 hours or so, and I'll be giving priority answering to those who are members and anyone who does super chats. Otherwise, I'm just going to try and answer as many questions here, and hope you all are having a good 2023 here so far. I tried to change my webcam because I was used to be using my continuity camera on my iPhone, but unfortunately, I still can't get it to work with Google Chrome recently. So we are back to the usual webcam, but hopefully, you guys don't mind it too much. I see we also had one person join here as a member in the live stream already. I think Colin joined early whenever I posted it last night that we were going to be doing this. So thanks for becoming a member, Colin. I see we have Carlos and two here as well to join us. And so happy to see all you're able to make it. Adam also as well. Happy New Year, everyone. He says, hope no one's too hungover. That's kind of why I figured, we could do a live stream on New Year's Day. As I was like, everyone's probably just like hanging around, laying low anyway. Maybe it's a good time to have a live stream, and hopefully a lot of you can make it here since it's still kind of a holiday and all that. But anyway, I'm glad you guys are all able to make it here. And so we have a couple questions here coming in. We have Saka says, John Cooper Works Clubman versus Golf R. Why is that not a conversation? That's a good point. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that because my brother-in-law is currently debating between those two. He's kind of in search of something with all-wheel drive and good power, and he likes hatchbacks, and he's actually considering between those. I've never driven a John Cooper Works Clubman or any modern Mini, honestly, for that matter, aside from the electric Cooper. So I can't weigh in on that conversation. That's a great conversation. I would certainly like to. Mini doesn't send me press vehicles, unfortunately, so I don't think I'd ever be able to drive one in the near future unless someone offers one to me. But it's a good point. I mean, from my past experiences with, I think I did a Clubman maybe 6 or 7 years ago at this point, and it was pretty soft. It was just a normal Clubman S or whatever. But yeah, John Cooper Works Clubman seems like it has some promise as far as, on paper goes, at least. I'd love to see if any of you have actually experienced them and what your, experience is like. But so thank you, Luke. So we got our first super chat here from Luke O. Thank you so much for the super chat, Luke. He says 2022 was expensive for me. Bought a house, had to do a bunch of repairs, hoping 23 is better financially. I hope it is better for you financially as well. Obviously all the talks is that, everything's going to be a recession here in 2023. We'll see if that happens or how bad it happens if it does. I get it. 2022 was expensive for a lot of people. People were spending record amounts on cars in 2022. Housing market was still super hot for the most part and stuff. Sorry to hear you had some bad luck there with your house and the repairs. That's home ownership, though. I mean, it seems like every 6 months or so we have a pipe that bursts in our house here. We have these like pinhole leaks that happen, and it does a bunch of water damage and everything, and it's just always a headache. And there's always little things like that with houses in general. But I hope that you have better luck here in 2023, and I hope all of you do as well. I think we could all use a break after the past few years here and all the ups and downs. And I see two says Matt is home alone right now. Beth and his daughter left him home alone purposely. Time for Doug and Hoovy to come rob his house. Yikes. Nope, they're all here. They're hanging out, just trying to be quiet. And actually, our daughter just woke up from her nap, so she'll be running around, maybe making some noise. We'll see. Thanks for joining too. And David says, any plans for track days or autocross this year? I would love to do that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, the only track days I ever do are the ones that manufacturers provide and bring me on, so that's really the only time I ever am on track, unfortunately. Autocross would be fun to try, and that takes less of a time and money commitment. That's something that I would like to do eventually. Usually I'm always so busy on the weekends, and I try and leave the weekends for family stuff for the most part, just because I do work so much during the week and, work long hours and stuff. So I try and not do as much car stuff on the weekend unless it's something I can include them in. And I kind of scratch the itch of, track driving and stuff with the press launches, because usually there's a handful every year that do include track time. And that's kind of when I get that release of like, yes, I can finally use some of the, driving skills that I've learned here with all the driving schools and stuff. I'm able to actually, drive at my limit a little bit more, but not planning anything currently though, David, but thanks for joining the live stream here as well. Carlos says, what are you looking forward to having for a week more, the Civic Type R or the GR Corolla? I think probably the GR Corolla, mostly because there's still a lot of unknowns to me about the GR Corolla since I haven't driven it on actual streets. Type R, I did have a chance to drive it on streets. And so, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of what a Type R is like in most instances. Obviously, I haven't taken it on my own back roads that I'm used to, benchmarking all these cars and stuff. But as far as, the GR Corolla, I mean, you know, I still have a pretty good idea of what a GR Corolla is like to drive, obviously, but I just would like to kind of get a more time with it. I was a very rushed kind of media drive because they crammed that and the manual super into the same drive event in the same day. So not as much time as I would have liked in the GR Corolla. So that is definitely the one I'm looking forward to the most here in 2023 between the two. And Dom, thank you so much for being a member now for 8 months. That's awesome. And he says, "Hey Matt, good to see you. Hope you and the fam had a great New Year." Thanks for joining. Yeah, we had a good New Year's Eve here, and so far a good New Year's Day too. So unfortunately, the baby didn't sleep very well last night, so didn't get a ton of sleep. But other than that, doing well. Thankfully, I'm feeling better. If you watched last week's live stream, I was still a little under the weather. I'm mostly back to normal here now, so I'm happy about that too. And I see the washer nerd says my mom will need a new car soon. She currently drives a 2008 Pilot. We're thinking Forester XT, Crosstrek 2.0, or previous gen RDX. So I guess you're shopping used as far as obviously because of the Forester, you can't get an XT anymore. So yeah, I think I don't love the old gen RDX personally. I have a very brief drive in one, but they just never really wowed me until the current generation. Crosstrek's a solid pick. My parents have one and they love it. My mother-in-law has the older generation Crosstrek. She loves hers as well. And Forester XT, when I drove like a 2014, many, many years ago, that was pretty solid as long as you don't mind the CVTs in those. And that's what Newt Media. Thanks for joining, Zach, and moderating here. He says Crosstrek solid car, you don't mind the CVT, and that's certainly true. And I do think that Subaru CVTs are better implemented in the non-turbo stuff than in the turbo stuff. The turbo stuff is kind of all over the place. The non-turbo one I could live with. It's not my first choice for an automatic. Certainly not even my first choice for a CVT. I think most companies do better feeling CVTs these days, but it's something that you can get used to. And I've had, I had like the Forester Wilderness for a week last year. I was fine with it. It kind of fades into the background. Usually doesn't annoy me. So yeah, Crosstrek, is honestly a lot of car as far as like the amount of space that it has on the inside for how small it is. I think that would be a really great pick. I actually like the way the Crosstrek drives better than the Forester currently. The RDX would be something I'd have to spend more time in one though to know for sure, if the RDX is worth, considering as well. But hopefully she has an easy time finding a car this year. I see we have some super chats here though. Thank you so much, Jay. He says, would you consider making custom SuperX fan baseball hats as a special release for 2023? Would love to rock with it meets or around my community. I really appreciate that and the idea. So I actually was trying to I do all my merch through Teespring, and they have baseball hats now, and I was hoping to do like a nice embroidered, like Matt Maran Motoring logo or something like that, just a little like circular, like, steering wheel one, but it didn't like turn out very well in their like, prototyping thing and showing you like how it would come out. So I need to play around with hats. Maybe the SuperX fan logo would be a better one to use on that. I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious to see if there's any others here who would be interested in, merch with Super Ducks fan stuff on it. I would be open to doing that for sure if more people would like to see that. Maybe as, like you said, as a little like, special release, a short-lived kind of thing, maybe, or something like that. I can certainly look into that because Teespring makes it really easy. I just upload the logo, and as long as it's formatted right and it's easy enough that their automated stuff can handle it, I mean, it could literally take me 15 minutes to put it into the merch store if I wanted to. So I'm totally open to that. I'll even just make one just for you if you want. If it actually turns out okay, maybe send me an email and I can follow up with you, because that's something I could totally just even make one for you, because it's pretty much that simple. So if that's something you're really into, definitely follow up with me and we can probably try and make that happen. Kyle, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, Happy New Year, Matt. Do you think Mazda and Subaru will keep their turbo 4 all-wheel drive sedans around the next 2 to 3 years, specifically the Mazda 3 and the WRX? I think WX is pretty safe. I think the Mazda 3 turbo will depend on how well Mazda does with this push to the premium market. There I think even though, we would like to think that it was because they have some performance, enthusiasts that really wanted to make a faster Mazda 3, they really were just like, we need a turbo motor in the Mazda 3 because we want to compete with an Audi A3 and the CLA and stuff. All of those have turbo four cylinders. That was at least the gist that I got from all the, they had like, some press events and actual like live stream, press things where we got to talk with, engineers and stuff like that. And that was the motivation, was just because they want to make it seem luxurious, not that they wanted it to be sporty. So if they're actually seeing some return on that, I think that the turbo Mazda 3s are selling pretty well. So if that continues to be the case, I would see that they would keep those, around a good while longer, at least the next 2 to 3 years for sure. Maybe they will try, at least Mazda will maybe try and dabble with like electrifying a Mazda 3 in the future to, give it some extra punch, but that's probably more than 2 to 3 years away, I'm guessing. So I think both of them are pretty safe as long as they continue to sell well. WX, I think, is safe no matter what. That'll at least live out a 5-year lifespan, if not longer. So I don't think you have to worry too much about that going away anytime soon. I see we have a Vatsy here. He says Happy New Year as well. Thanks for joining. And I see Dom says he'd like some Superx fan merch as well. Goth Rocker doesn't wear hats. Totally understand that. I very rarely wear them as well. I do have a little hat collection you can actually see up there. Those are the hats that I get from the various press trips. So I got a GR Super one there, a Hellcat one, and I got a bunch of other ones stacked up behind there too. But they're usually just for like whenever I haven't showered yet and I need to run out and grab something or something like that. But I used to love wearing hats. I don't know, haven't done it recently. And Low Rockstar said he'd, maybe grab one for his collection. That'd be cool. So yeah, maybe I'll look into that. I really appreciate that suggestion, Jay. And I see we have a super chat. I also want to see David said the BRZ has been everything you described. Now I wonder if my next car will be an old Cayman Boxer or an MR2 Spider. There isn't anything new I'd move to for this type of feel and experience. I'm glad that the BRZ has lived up to your expectations. I love it too, but obviously I'm a little bit biased since I owned the old generation, I think. But I mean, I think most people agree it's one of the best performance bargains out there right now. And so, yeah, I'm so glad that you're enjoying it. And thanks for buying one still too. I mean, that, people actually, supporting these causes, not just with comments, but with actual dollars. That's how you get these cars made. That's how you continue to have them made, is sales. It all comes down to sales. But Jersey Boy Greaser, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, what's going on, Matt? Do you think Jeep will make a performance Grand Wagoneer to compete with the Escalade V, or maybe Lincoln making a fast Navigator? I don't think. I think that those companies are pretty happy, staying in their lane and not trying to go for the performance thing. Cadillac just has this obsession with, trying to pursue the performance thing, and I love them for it. I think it's awesome. But I just think that certainly Lincoln, they have always, like, in the past interviews that I've seen from Lincoln, they're like, yep, we're all about luxury. We don't care about performance. We never have cared about performance. We never will. And I think that totally makes sense. I don't think anyone would really buy a performance-oriented Lincoln, most likely. Grand Wagoneer, I know, they have real, a lot of hype, I guess, internally about that new Hurricane Twin Turbo 6 that's now in the Grand Wagoneer L. So, since that's a turbo thing, they could easily just turn up the boost on that if they were feeling frisky, I guess. But I don't think they're going to. I mean, again, it's, Dodge and, Stellantis and all that. I mean, they do a bunch of crazy stuff. So I wouldn't put it past them, but I certainly wouldn't wait for any competitor to the Escalade V. I think that's kind of an isolated thing on its own. And, also probably a short-lived thing. I don't think the Escalade V is going to last, for a super long period of time, maybe a couple of years or something. That's it. But, it'd be cool if they all had, performance versions of that. But I feel like there's not a huge market for that. Maybe if Escalade V does super well, then Jeep would consider it. But I don't think there's any chance of Lincoln ever considering that. And Tu Chang's suggesting here that I bring back the Super Dirks fan name as a different brand for personal car reviews. I think the thing with the Dirks fan name is that it's I think I kind of transitioned away from that at the right time, partially just because it really helped the channel as far as getting opportunities and helping people to think or to realize that I'm not biased, and that I like other things than a WRX, and I'm not going to compare everything to a WRX, or that's like my only focus. And I also just like, I mean, I like the new WRX, but I think that there's a lot of other really impressive stuff out there as well that I don't even think I would ever see myself buying the new WRX. If I needed something all-wheel drive, I'd probably just live without a manual, and I think I could live without all-wheel drive here in Pittsburgh with snow tires and front-wheel drive. If I needed a manual daily driver that was fun and inexpensive, I just get a Civic Si and put snow tires on it, I think. So like, you know, using that name, obviously, like, that is, like, part of my identity, so, it's I get that part of it, but I feel like, I am a fan of the WRX, but that's not like, I'm not, like, a super fan of the WRX anymore, so I think I've kind of moved on, and, that's just partially because of the way Subaru has taken the WRX as far as its, what it used to be and what it is now, and it's just, yeah, I don't know. I like it. I like the car, but there's just a lot of impressive competitors. Stuff like the Elantra N gets me way more excited than the WRX does these days. So, I just, yeah, don't think the Subaru fan name will ever come back, in an official manner, aside from maybe some hats. But Justin, thank you so much for being a member here for 4 months. He says, can't believe he's been a member for 4 months. Happy New Year to you and your family. Thank you so much for the support, Justin. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you're enjoying the perks here. And yeah, thanks for joining here in the live stream as well. And see, Jay, also, thank you so much for another super chat, Jay. Here he says, are you anticipating being at the Integra Type S launch? I'm wondering if they'll just use the SI as powertrain or the D2 and 2.0T like the Accord did. I am hoping to be at the Type S launch. I've actually technically never been to an Acura media event, but the people that do the Acura stuff are the same people who do the Honda stuff, basically. So I'm hoping, that they would invite me, since I did get on Civic Type R and stuff like that, in 2022. But, I never am guaranteed a media invite to anything, honestly. The only company I can really count on to invite me to every single event is Toyota. Toyota is the one that, no matter what it is, and no matter if I've said no a few times in the past or whatever, they've always invited me on stuff no matter what. But aside from a Toyota or Lexus product, it's always kind of like a flip a coin, like, am I going to get invited or not? Because I don't get invited to everything. But, but as far as your question about what they're going to do with it, it seems pretty set in stone that it's going to be Civic Type R, just with Integra packaging. So that means the 2.0 from the Civic Type R, maybe a little bit more power out of it, but same motor from Type R, same transmission from Type R, same limited slip diff from Type R, front wheel drive, no all-wheel drive or anything like that, no automatic, and they already confirmed it's going to be manual. So just like the Integra, where the Integra was an SI that they added in, the adaptive dampers and the moonroof and the nicer stuff. I guarantee you it's gonna be the same exact thing for the Type R. It'll be a Type R that has a moonroof, that has heated seats, and maybe that, well, obviously it's gonna have a softer suspension tune. They've said it's gonna be street focused, not track focused like Type R. So softer Type R with moonroof and heated seats, and a few nicer materials. That is all we should expect out of the Integra Type S. Maybe they'll surprise us with more, but anyone expecting anything more than that is probably setting themselves up for disappointment, unfortunately. It'd be cool if they did more, but I don't think it's realistic. And Luco, thank you so much for another super chat here. He says, I wish for the regular Integra they gave it like 20 more horsepower over an SI. I totally agree. I was expecting a power bump there. We'll see if Type S might even just be identical to the Type R as well, if they follow the same, mold. But it would have been nice to see more power for sure. Because I think the extra weight from the Integra, to me, it didn't feel quite as fast as an SI. Admittedly, I was driving the SI in like early spring, late winter. And with the Integra, I was driving it in the middle of summer. So not quite boost weather, like I did with the SI. So there's probably some skewing there as far as my perception because of that. But the good thing is, though, it's just a tune away. If you do want more power in those vehicles, it's not too hard. But yeah, it would be nice if they did a little bit more for sure. And Dom says, have you seen the 24 WRX with body colored cladding? They do look good. I've seen some Photoshops, and maybe I've seen the picture of someone painting the back end, but I don't think I've actually seen much. But it does seem like they look better. I mean, I don't know if Subaru's ever gonna like fix it, but it was mind blowing to me how they actually made the new 2024 Impreza look good. Like I think it looks good. It's nice, and even the new 2024 Crosstrek that we already saw the international debut of that has a painted rear bumper. Why they didn't paint like everything else I could live with on an X, but just the rear bumper, just paint the rear bumper. Like it just looks so cheap with that. I don't know. It looks better on the dark colored cars where it kind of hides and blends itself in, but I won't go on a whole direct tangent again. But and two says it's because I'm a Toyota shill as far as why I get invited to all our events. Definitely not. That's one thing I know a lot of people do love to, assume that I'm, opinionated or biased or, whatever the case might be. But I mean, I'm totally, blunt with my opinions. I always call things how I see it. If something sucks, I'll say it sucks. Like, I don't care. And I think Toyota is actually one of the companies where they're comfortable with that kind of criticism and stuff. And I actually mentioned at my end of the year video how Ford invited me on the Shelby GT500 launch back in 2019. I really liked the car. The video did well. And yet I never got another event to a Ford event ever after that. And including the 2024 Mustang, when I actually emailed their PR people and they kind of like danced around it and were like, oh, well, anyone's invited. You can just show up. And I'm like, no, I mean, like I need media access. I want to film ahead of time for the embargo and stuff. And like they kind of dodged the questions as far as that goes. So I don't know what I did to Ford, but so don't hold your breath for a 2024 Mustang review for me anytime soon. But I think part of that's because from my experience, it seems like Ford is a little less happy with negative feedback than some of the other companies are. But I call it how I see it. Thankfully, Ford still sends me press cards. So they don't hate me that much, but just kind of funny. So I see Gabriel Young. Thank you so much for the super chat here. He says, I just bought a 2022 Kia Stinger GT2 all drive Scorpion edition in ceramic silver. Do you think parts will be hard to get since the car is being discontinued? I mean, yeah, they didn't build a ton of them. I think the saving grace as far as parts for the Stinger will be the G70, as far as at least the stuff underneath, because they do share some good stuff underneath there. So, I think long term, there'll be some stuff you can swap in and out from the G70. But as far as, obviously components that are unique to the Stinger, styling parts, things like that, it might be hard. So, if you're worried about that kind of stuff, it wouldn't hurt to, build up a little backlog of stuff if you're planning to keep it a long time, and stock up on some new old stock parts that, you might think you'll need or something. But that's awesome. You got a Scorpion edition though. And thanks for buying one of the last Stingers here. I know it seems like they're getting more and more popular in the past year, unfortunately, even though they're getting discontinued. It's like a little bit, too late. But I'm glad that, there are still people buying them and supporting them. I've heard the Kia dealers are rough. So I'd be curious to hear, Gabriel, what your experience was with your Kia dealer. Because someone was just commenting yesterday on one of my videos about how like they were going to buy a Stinger, but the Kia dealers around them were so bad that like turned them off. And so I'd be curious if you had a bad Kia dealer where you were at. Obviously, not all Kia dealers are bad, but it just seems to be a theme I've been seeing recently is people saying that the dealership experience was just so bad. And I think Kia dealers were just rated the worst from some kind of survey or something. So they're like some of the worst ones to work with. So maybe that's hurt the Stinger a little bit too. But I'm so glad you got one. Hopefully you enjoy it for a long time to come here. Don't want to miss. We have a few other members here that mentioned Tu Chang's talking about a GR Previa. A GR Previa would be awesome if they even brought the Previa back and then did a GR version. Carla says, what do you think the next GR product will be? I'm thinking maybe the Camry. That's probably the best bet if they do more. Because based on like what I've pieced together from, the comments I've seen from, GR folks, it seems like they're happy with those three sports cars and they will probably continue to support those three and maybe even do next generation versions of those three. But I'm not sure if they will like really expand the GR brand, to other models. I would love to see more GR stuff, of course. I mean, even like a GR Prius would be sweet. I mean, I don't know if it would fit, but everyone's already excited about the Prius Prime. But could you imagine if they did a Prius GR that had the Prime setup from the RAV4 with 300 horsepower in a Prius, and made it look a little sportier. Like, I think that would get a lot of people even more excited than the Prime already is. Which, by the way, I will be driving the Prime, and I think towards the end of March. So those of you wondering, the timing on where the Prius Prime is at, that will be coming a little bit later, a few months after the regular Prius, which should be showing up here in January, I think, at dealers. But anyway, and Raphael says hangovers are brutal, but I made it. Happy New Year, Matt. Sorry about the hangover, but thanks for making it, and hopefully you had a good night at least. To make up for the hangover there a little bit. Thanks so much for joining here. And we see two says. Brought to you by the GR Previa and Raid Shadow Legends. Yeah, still staying away from those Raid Shadow Legends ads for sure. Jonathan Robinson, thank you so much for the super chat here. He says, looking for a fun daily driver. List so far is M2, GR Corolla, WRX, GTI, Civic Si, Integra, RS3, etc. Basically, most fun for daily under 65. If you can go up to 65 grand and you want a fun daily, I guess first, I will say it depends on how badly you need 4 doors and all-wheel drive. But assuming you do, because you're talking about M2s and stuff like that as well. So I'm guessing that you're kind of fluid as far as what your requirements are, because all those vehicles are very different. If you want 4 doors and all-wheel drive, RS3, without a question, like that's it. If you are someone who would appreciate a rear-wheel drive experience, obviously none of us have driven the new M2 yet. So that could be, certainly something to look into. I haven't driven the old M2, at least as far as the most recent version. The last one I did was 2017. But that was a ton of fun as well. And, as far as, daily driver, also to come down to, how much comfort you want. Because, some of those vehicles are, pretty comfortable. They're all great daily drivers, honestly. But, if you want something that's really fun, you are open to, rear-wheel drive, I would say to consider some of the muscle stuff as well, if that's your thing, because those are a lot of fun. And they're also like the Mustang, for example. I know I've had a ton of Mustangs, I'm biased, but they're really good at being comfortable cruisers. And depending on how much you want to push your vehicle, you may enjoy, the extra comfort of the muscle cars as well, if you're just cruising along in traffic and things like that. But it also comes down to, are you looking for, I guess some of those are manual only, like the SI and stuff, but if you are looking for something with a good automatic, then maybe like a GTI would be better. It really comes down to exactly what you're looking for. So it's hard to give a blanket answer, because I think there's a different right answer for every person and their preferences and personality. So Jonathan, if you would like to discuss this more, I will certainly answer. If you have Facebook, you can send me a message on the Matt Maran Motoring Facebook page, and I can kind of talk through and kind of drill down exactly, what you enjoy the most in a car, what you need your car to do, and all that. And we can kind of, narrow the list down if you'd like some extra help with that, because I love helping people find a car that they're going to love. So be more than happy to chat with you more about that if you want to discuss more. But RS3 is a great thing, for 65 grand. M2, all those vehicles you listed are going to be fun there. So I don't think you can really go wrong with any of those. Jay, thank you so much for another super chat here as well. He says, if they made a GR Toyota, they should use the 2.0 T from Lexus. It would sell pretty good in the competition for Toyota as another GR product. You said GR Toyota. I'm guessing you mean Prius, or if you're just talking about just any Toyota in general. I think that, that's certainly something that's on the table. There's talk that the 2.4 hybrid, setup is going to end up in the Tacoma here. We already see it, of course, in the Crown and the RX and stuff. So the only problem is the way that they have that motor set up, at least in the RX. I haven't driven the Crown, but in the RX, which is the RX 500H Performance. I did a week-long video on one of those. You can check out if you haven't seen that one yet. But it uses a 6-speed automatic. It's not bad. It's pretty responsive. But I don't know if that powertrain in its current form is sporty enough for the GR badge, in my opinion. I think they would have to do some changes to it to give it either more power, more response, pair it up with a manual, something like that. I think there's, some of those types of things they could maybe do to spice it up. But yeah, it's just going to come down to what they end up wanting to make a GR version of, if they even do. But it would be, I'm all about the more GR products. The more GR stuff out there, the better, because everything they've done has been awesome so far. And I think they'll anything new that they do is going to be awesome as well. Um, Omar, thank you so much for joining the Matt Moran Motoring Club here and becoming a member. I really appreciate you joining, and I appreciate your support. I'll keep an eye out for any questions you have here. If you have any, I'll certainly try and answer them here in this live stream. And check out all the other perks of being a member. You'll see we have exclusive posts for members. I do community posts every once in a while, giving some updates on the future reviews coming down the road and things like that. But thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. I hope you're having a good new year as well. So other questions. Okay, we have Jay has another super chat here. Thanks for the super chats, Jay. You didn't have to do another one. I could have totally tried to find your follow-up question there. But he says, sorry for GR Camry. Yeah, 2.4, 275 horsepower from the NX 350. That would be good. I think, if you look at the Highlander, that's what they're doing with, the Highlander. They swapped out the V6 for the Turbo 4. And I think, they did say that Camrys with the V6, it's a very small amount. So I could even envision them just getting rid of a high horsepower Camry altogether for the next generation. But if they do decide to even just do, like a higher trimmed version of the Camry, 100% it's going to drop the V6 like everything else and go with the 2.4 with, 275 horsepower, whatever the Highlander has. That's going to be the V6 replacement and everything Toyota has, I think. And there's talks that's what they're going to do with the Tacoma as well, is use that 2.4T. So that thing's going to be in everything here in the next couple of years. But if they do want to do a GR1, then yeah, if they do that with the Crown setup and have it with the power, the powertrain of that, where you have the hybridized component, 340 horsepower in a GR Camry, if they just ported it over from the Crown, that could still be solid. I think they would need to do some tuning to that powertrain to make it GR worthy, in my opinion. Omar is saying, do you think there will be a 2023 Toyota GR Highlander to compete with the Explorer ST? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to touch anything sporty with the Highlander. Ford has had success with the Explorer ST, and it seems like they continue to. But I don't think there's very much chance that there's going to be any kind of sporty SUVs from Toyota. If you see anything sporty, it would probably end up being the RAV4 or something like that. But anyway, Tu Chang, thank you so much for gifting 5 Matt Moran Motoring memberships. That's super nice. So if any of you do have gifting on, I think, I see people are claiming them here. That was so nice of you too to do that. So hopefully you guys can all experience the memberships here. I think it's for like a month or so, and you can continue it if you'd like. But that's so awesome that you did that. I really appreciate that too, and helps us to grow the membership community, because I really love asking questions on there and having the smaller group of you to kind of discuss things with there in the membership community post. So thank you so much for doing that too. It's really nice, and congrats to all of you there who claimed it. It's awesome, and another perk of joining us here in the live stream. So thanks so much for that too. That was so nice of you. And he says, welcome to the basement, club. Yep. I appreciate all of you who do support the channel here and if stuck with me all these years. It really means a lot. So thank you so much for the support. And Omar has his first question here as a member. He says, should Ford bring the Excursion as electric? And Happy New Year's. Looking forward to your review of the Mustang Dark Horse. Yeah, I'm hoping I get my hands on one way or another. Even if Ford doesn't provide one, I hope that maybe someone out there that buys one of the first ones can hook me up and help me to do a review on that. As far as an electric Excursion, I've heard rumors in the past about the Excursion coming back, and with the way Ford is going with making everything electric pretty quickly here, I think an electric Excursion can make a lot of sense. I honestly think even a gas Excursion could still make sense, at least for a few years, but it probably would make sense to future-proof themselves and just start it off with electric as the only setup. I don't know where they're at as far as the Excursion stuff. Certainly, it seems like the trend is still that everyone wants bigger and bigger SUVs. And I'm honestly surprised they haven't done an Excursion faster. It wouldn't be hard. I mean, look at how the Super Duties have been so popular. Literally just, put a SUV body on the back of the Super Duty. It seems like an easy money printer for them. I don't know if they're just maybe worried about it tearing down their cafe, fleet averages. But since that's a truck, it should be classified somewhat differently as well. So I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on as far as the excursion goes. But certainly, yeah, it seems like a great idea, at least from the outside here. So thanks so much for the question. Carlos also says, just wanted to say thanks for doing the live streams. Makes my workday go by faster. I'm glad you're able to watch them at work because I work in a Mazda dealership and it's pretty slow on Sundays. Well, that's cool that they're even open on Sundays. Here in Pennsylvania, all the car dealerships are closed on Sundays by law. So I can imagine it's probably slow for sure, though, especially New Year's Day. I'm surprised they're actually making you work on New Year's Day, too. That's nuts. But thanks for joining, and I'm glad you're able to watch it there at work. I see SLMD Sedan says, how do you become a member? There should be a join button, I think, on the live stream page. I know on regular video pages, there's a join button. And I think it's both on mobile and on desktop here. If you're watching on a TV, you might not have a button for it. You also can join just by going on the channel page, and there should be a join button there as well. And that's how you become a member if you'd like to. But thanks for considering it. And I see Vendors here. Thank you so much for joining. He says, Happy New Year. Hope you're having a good New Year as well so far. And Vendor, thanks so much for being a member as well. And Rafi's here as well. I'm glad everyone's able to join here in this live stream. This is great. I think we really hit a sweet spot as far as the day and time here. I'm glad everyone is able to join. Great to see everyone in here. Jay has just become a member as well. Thanks for becoming a member too, Jay. I really appreciate it. And yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm going to be doing more member posts here this year. And if you go and see the community post I did a couple of days ago, you'll see a new video idea that I'm planning here for January. I'm still going to keep on the down low until I actually post it up, since it's so competitive out there these days with YouTube. But another new video idea I'm excited to try out here in January, and all kinds of cool little inside scoops you get as a member. So Yavinder, though, says, out of all the cars you reviewed in 2022, which would you consider the car of the year? So, I'm sure you watched the top 10 video of, my top 10, vehicles that I reviewed in 2022. As far as, my favorite of the year, I'd say that it probably still is the Escalade V, like I mentioned in that video. As far as the best, a car, like from an objective, like car viewer standpoint, I think it's still also, it's still a little bit subjective. It's so hard for me to just say like a one car that is, the best car, because I don't think there's one best car for everyone. I think everyone has a different best car for them. But I still think, Escalade V is probably the most fun. But everything that I mentioned there in that top 10 is really good. And there's so many other good ones that I didn't even have get into the top 10 just because I just did a lot of really good stuff in 2022. Like the Genesis GV60, so impressive. Hyundai Ioniq 5, another one that was really, really impressive. Not perfect, but very, very good. There's just so many good cars that are coming out every year. But that top 10 list is still kind of what I stand by as, my top ones. So car of the year for me, I'd probably say it would be Escalade V, I guess. Rafi says, yeah, Escalade V. And Yavinder says, yeah, same. Escalade V is an awesome, fun vehicle. Yeah, highly recommend if you can ever go for a drive or ride an Escalade V. It is hilarious. I can't wait to see those things slowly start to hopefully pop up on the streets here this year. Hoop Dream says, hey, Matt, longtime fan back from your BRZ days. Thank you so much for all the years of support. I appreciate that. He says, I have a 23 Mustang Mach 1 on order. Would be daily driving it in the northeastern area. Is it possible to daily an M1 from your perspective, mostly highway driving? I think a Mach 1 would be great. I mean, it's very similar to the Bullet, and I love daily driving the Bullet, and especially for highway driving. Mustangs just eat up miles. So unless you do the Mach 1 with the performance handling package, that might make it a little stiffer and a little less comfortable. But that's really it. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, Mustangs are super great. And even with a handling package, shouldn't be too bad. So I think that's definitely going to be a great choice, and you should enjoy it a lot as well. I see we got some spam here. I gotta get rid of. Let me get rid of that. All right, and JT Kent says he just saw Mach 1 and fighter jet gray today. Yeah, I love the way the Mach 1's looking at fighter jet gray. I don't know what color you got, but it's they're very, very cool. I love the Mach 1s. If I didn't have the Bullet, Mach 1 is probably what I would get, because that Tremec's got to be a really nice, combo there with that engine. Yeah, Juventus says to block the scammer. I think I did. If any of you still keep seeing it, let me know. But it's the first time I think I've actually had someone in a live stream come in and just like blow us up with a bunch of spam comments. It's funny. Um, and Rafi says, I was surprised the CT5V Blackwing or CT4V didn't make the list, or am I late? And that was last year. Both of those were 2021 as far as the reviews. So I did spend a week with the CT4V Blackwing, here in 2022, or I guess back in 2022, I need to say. But that falls in the same category as like the BRZ 86, Elantra N, Miata, where those weren't new experiences in 2022, so therefore they didn't really qualify in my mind as far as being on that list there. But another fantastic one. They did make my top 10 last year, or 2 years ago, I guess I should say, in 2021. So you can check out that list if you want to see all the top ones back then. But anyway, Tom, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey, Matt, which car do you think handles better, V6 Camaro 1LE or GR86? So I obviously the Camaro will have better grip because you have the way wider tires. So from a grip standpoint, and if you're talking like which one can pull the most G's on a skid pad, Camaro. If you're talking handling fun and see, because there's like two camps of people. When every time I like discuss handling, every once in a while I'll get someone who's like, oh well, this pulls more G's on a skid pad, so therefore it is the better handler. So if you're looking at handling from an objective numbers standpoint, Camaro is the easy winner there. But if you look at handling from a seat of your pants perspective, and I guess what kind of handling you want, I think the GR86 to me feels more sports car like. The GR86, you sit lower, it's lighter, it's smaller, it's more agile as a result of all those things. And it's also more playful, which if you again want the maximum amount of grip, GR86, it's better now with the Pilot Sports you can get on the premiums, but it's not, I guess, if you're doing like autocross or track times, set and lap times, things like that, Camaro's going to be the better one. But I think as far as which one I would have more fun on a back road in, it would be the GR86. Just because, Camaro is fantastic. I've said for years, ever since this generation Camaro came out, it is super awesome. I love them. They're really, I think, better than the Mustang in most ways, honestly, aside from, visibility and, a couple of the little things. But I would say that the GR86 feels more like a sports car. I mean, there's a lot of people that have said it's basically the closest thing you can get to a Porsche Cayman without getting a Porsche Cayman. Which is crazy since it's a completely different engine orientation and things like that. But they handle really, really well. But they're not going to beat the Camaro on grip or anything like that. And Raphael, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, one really great thing about the move to electric cars is that manufacturers are giving us some excellent ICE cars right now. Yeah, that's very true. They're, seizing the day and, going for the most they can go for. And they know the time is limited. And yeah, I think, honestly, even though before the push to electric, which I know it's been a long time coming, it hasn't just been in the past couple of years, but we've really been living in a golden age of performance, and I think just was reignited from, the last time that kind of all the performance stuff went extinct, with the 70s. And it was like you had a kind of a dead period there from the mid 70s all the way up until, basically like the 90s almost, with a few exceptions. But, I think everyone was like, oh, wait, like we can make stuff faster again. And like, it seemed like there was less concern about the, emissions and fuel economy and stuff there as we got into the 2000s here. And that's when you saw this huge resurgence of, performance and the Hellcats and, all the muscle cars came back, which, Camaro had been gone. There was no Dodge muscle car. They all came back to fight with the Mustang again and reignited that whole thing. And I think that also put a fire under the butts of a lot of other car companies being like, hey, let's reignite the hot hatch wars or, all these other things. And it really just, we are living in a golden era. And I think that I was saying that years ago when the Hellcats came out, I was like, man, we're going to be looking back on 2015 like, these were the days. And thankfully those days have lasted quite a few years now. And obviously they will come to an end in a way. I think the electric stuff obviously will be crazier as far as performance goes. It just is different. But yeah, I think it's, it'll be interesting to see, I think a lot of the cars that you are seeing markups and stuff on, yes, people who pay those markups are probably overpaying, especially in the short term. But I think long term, if you are planning on buying these things and, mothballing them and, hiding them away somewhere or something, I mean, Barrett Jackson, 50 years, it's going to be all the stuff that came out from, 2010 or whatever up until, the 2025 or, something like that, or at least till maybe 2035 when the actual cutoff happens for most of these companies. But, it's a good time to be an enthusiast. I know it's, kind of crazy and, there's a lot of stuff to be upset about as far as things changing, but yeah, we still have so many good options, so much fun stuff out here as well. And Harris, thank you so much for becoming a member as well. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I'm so glad that so many of you have become members here, and it'll be great here for the live streams because that is one of the best perks is the priority answering here. And I'm just so glad that we have so many people here joining us for this live stream. This is great. And I see everyone else saying Happy New Year. I see we have Yuri from the Straight Pipe series says Happy New Year as well. Thanks for joining, Yuri. Hope you're doing well. And you and the wife and the baby are doing well too. And yeah, it's great to see you in here, and I hope you guys have a great 2023 there at the Straight Pipes. I hope I see you on some more press events. It'd be great to cross paths and actually hang out in person again, because it was fun. I can't remember. I think it was Mazda CX-30. First time I met Yuri and those guys. It was a lot of fun to see Yuri and Jacob there. Great dudes. And so hope you guys have a great 2023 too. And hopefully we can all beat the algorithm and rise above, the changes that YouTube keeps throwing at us here. I see Harris has another super chat. Thank you so much for the generous super chat here. 2023. He says, here's to a kick-ass new year, everyone. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it, Harris. And appreciate the well wishes for everyone here. And Yavinder says, I've studied automotive and truck technician from grade 10, and every teacher told me the electric cars are actually worse for the environment due to the amount of chemicals used in the batteries. Yeah, so I mean, I won't go too much into the environmental stuff because unfortunately that stuff has become politicized a lot, and it's one of those things where there's a lot of information out there, and I'm trying to stay neutral on this here. It's just a tough thing to discuss without upsetting people. And there's some other channels out there that can go and just, take a side. I unfortunately am not in a position, if you guys watch the top 10 video here from the end of the year, I'm not in a position to be alienating viewers at this point, just because the channel keeps declining in views. So I can't afford to speak my mind and upset people and, give all my opinions. Because honestly, I don't think people really care that much about my opinion when it comes to that kind of stuff, So I try and stay neutral in the weekly updates as well, as far as, reporting on all that stuff, because I know I have people on both sides, but it's unfortunate there has to be two sides to that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's information both ways. So I'll just leave it at that, and not get any further into all that stuff, unfortunately. Even though I would love to just talk about that kind of stuff, but I don't want to upset anyone. And Davis says, where in the U.S. would you move to if picking, just because it offers great roads for driving? I think obviously LA has a lot of appeal, but you also have to deal with the terrible LA traffic. If you're able to live, somewhere a little bit on the outskirts of, the busy parts of California, that there could be some real gems there because you can, go to Angeles, Crest and all that kind of stuff on a regular basis. But excuse me, I think as far as well-rounded stuff, the great thing with California though is you can drive all year long as well. But I think the Northeast really does have, all these little roads because they were built back before there was really, a lot of these roads were based on, trails from Native Americans and things like that. And at least the ones around here in southwestern Pennsylvania, there's a ton of that kind of stuff. And so you have some really sweet roads as a result. And, there's just a lot of, topography changes depending on where you're at in the Northeast and stuff. I don't know. In my experience, it seems like there's just a lot of really good stuff in the Northeast. Whenever I go review cars in Texas, for example, or Florida, or even other parts of California sometimes, it's like, man, where do I go to find a good corner? And it's kind of tough sometimes, so it's when I'm in the Northeast, I usually never have that problem. In the Northeast, I can always find a nice back road, usually, within a few minutes drive, it seems. So I would say if you're betting, that's probably where I would, I would go. And Aziz noted, whoa, Matt just swore. Yes, peeling back the onion little by little here. And Adam says, it's okay, Matt, we know what you mean as far as staying neutral and all that stuff. Jay says, if the Prelude did make a return, would they make it an actual coupe after admitting coupes don't sell well, or redesign it as a sedan like the Integra? I think if what we've been seeing is that Honda had those two sports cars under sheets. They're teasing they're going to be electric. And the rumor that I talked about in the weekly update, which I think you're probably referring to, is that one of them is going to be called the Prelude. And it's not going to come to like 2028 or something, and it'll be electric. But supposedly, it seems like it would actually be a coupe. Yes, like a real two-door low coupe. And if that is the case, I don't think Honda's opposed to coupes. It's just, where do you justify the business case for that? I think they'd be up for doing coupes if people bought them, but I think no, these days, justifying that kind of thing, the only way you can really justify that, I think, from a business standpoint, is something limited run, limited production that you can still make some kind of a profit on, and as long as people are willing to pay the high prices for it, like the NSX. The NSX, I think actually was a success in Acura and Honda's mind. I think it did what they wanted it to do. And even though, other people might have viewed it as a failure because it didn't sell as much as competitors or something, I think Honda and Acura were happy with the NSX and what it did. And so, we're talking that kind of stuff and that kind of money, though. So it's going to be an uphill battle as far as the Prelude. If they do, like, it seems like under that sheet, they look like there was two-door vehicles there. One is the NSX and one is something else. And I think, they'll just, do a coupe and see what happens. I think it also could make sense as a halo product if they know, okay, this is going to lose money, no one's going to buy it, but it's a nice eye candy thing to throw in commercials and having a couple of showrooms and things like that. Even if it's a flop, it's, this whole like, hey, we need to signal the electric era and what we can do. And that's, I think, what you're going to see from a lot of these companies is like, hey, here's what we can do, with electric stuff. And they're going to do that by showing off crazy, fancy stuff that they know is not going to have mass appeal, but kind of puts everyone on notice, like, whoa, Honda makes sweet, swoopy electric coupes. Like, didn't see that coming. And you kind of reignite that interest in a lot of people. And I think there could be some value there. So we'll have to see, how much they go for it with the Prelude there, and that car could also get canceled too. We'll have to wait and see. But at least with the electric stuff, it's a little cheaper, I think, considering there's not quite as much engineering to do as far as mechanical stuff goes. And Harris is also saying, I'm booking it out of here, guys, but you all have a blessed rest of the day and the year. Take it easy, everyone. Thanks for joining so much for a little bit there, Harris. I really appreciate it. And thanks so much for becoming a member here as well. Dom says Colorado has really beautiful roads. Very true. I love my time in Colorado outside of the Denver area a few years back when I did all those old muscle cars, the Roadrunner and the what was the other ones that I did? The Challenger, the 71 Challenger, and I also did a Porsche 911 GT3 of the 997 generation out there. Lots of great roads in Colorado. You're definitely right. Those are some great roads. And of course, Pikes Peak. Come on. It's just like one of the best roads ever. And Adam says the answer you're looking for, Matt, is San Diego, where I live. San Diego does have some great roads from what I've seen so far. There's, where I always stay whenever I go on these manufacturer events for the San Diego stuff. It's always like we got to drive a little bit though and get out of, some of those built up areas, to get to some of that good stuff. But yeah, there's been some pretty good stuff in San Diego for sure. And Yavinder's also saying, do you have any New Year's resolutions? Not as far as, there's not really too much personally. It's just really, focusing on just trying to improve the channel and trying to stop this decline of growth and, views and stuff. Because again, I want to do this the rest of my life, but I can't do it the rest of my life if, it just slowly, declines, and doesn't continue to grow. So that's number one priority for me, is just getting the channel to have better views, better growth, and just working my hardest that I possibly can to get to that point. I'd love to have my own personal resolutions. I'd love to work less. I'd love to, stress less about the channel and all these other things. But unfortunately, I don't have that luxury right now. So it's just all about improving the channel as much as I can. Evander also says Canada's got some amazing roads as well. I've been to Toronto and Montreal, and Toronto was a long time ago before I was even driving. And then Montreal, I was just there pretty briefly, so I didn't have any chance to drive myself because I was just there with Shell for the Formula One race, and they just transported us everywhere we needed to go. But yeah, I've heard there's some great roads up there. It's just Canada has this really strict speed limits, so it's a little tricky as far as that goes. Jay says Minnesota has beautiful scenery as well, and back roads to see how this does. That's cool. I think I've only ever flown through Minneapolis, and otherwise I've never actually experienced Minnesota. Um, but Omar's saying, with the rumored new Bullet movie, which generation Bullet should they use, or wait for the 7th generation version, in your opinion? So obviously, I would prefer them to use the current generation Bullet because then I'd have the car for the movie, and that would really make me very happy. But I think what I saw was that they're going to probably have it be a news story, but set in the same time period as the original Bullet movie. So not a sequel, but still probably in the late 60s. So my guess is that it's probably going to use an original 68 Mustang Fastback. And with Steven Spielberg being the director on it, I think so. This is just a personal hunch I have. I have no information. I wish I did, but I think because we still don't know who bought the original Bullet movie car that sold for 3.4 million or however much it sold for. I know Steven Spielberg is a Bullet fan. Obviously, he's doing the new movie. My guess is that he was the one who bought the Bullet car, and that it will make at least a cameo in the new movie. Crazy hunch, but you heard it here first. I think that they may actually use the original movie car in the new movie. So we'll see if that happens. That would also be a really geeked out kind of moment if that were to happen. But that's my guess. 7th generation version could make sense. Ford could cash in, with the new Bullet version as well. But we've seen with the Dark Horse, it seems like they're interested in maybe doing some new stuff here and not relying on previous special editions for this new generation. And also the new Mustang isn't really very retro anymore, like they kind of did a little bit of with the, S550s. So I don't know if they do a new Bullet, honestly. And obviously, all the old people that are owning the Bullets for the most part, are always like, oh, no one knows who Steve McQueen is anymore. No one likes the movie Bullet. They'll never do another Bullet generation. They said that back in 2008 whenever they did that generation. And then sure enough, they're like, oh, they'll never do a new one for 2018. And I was like, I think they will. And they did. So I'm not going to write it off and be another one of those people that says, oh, they're never going to do another one. They might, but I just feel like it doesn't fit as much with the vibe for the 2024 Mustang. But it's fun to think about. Thanks for the question, Omar. And Adam says, come on, Yuri, get a plug or two in for Matt on your channel. He deserves 1 million subs just as much as you guys do. The thing is, actually, Yuri did in their, I think it was their 2022 top video on Instagram. They actually did say subscribe to all these channels to get them to 1 million subscribers, and my channel is one of the ones that they mentioned there. So they kind of actually did give me a little bit of a shout out there. Yuri is super cool, and they totally deserve all the success that they have. And we'll see if I ever get to 1 million subs someday. It's it'd be nice for sure, but not holding my breath either. As long as I can just keep doing this, and keep my head above water financially to do it, I'm happy. It'd be great to have the channel grow like everyone else's channels have seemed to blow up in the past few years here, but I'm just grateful I can keep doing this. And Luke O says West Virginia has awesome roads as well. That's for sure. They do have some great roads there too. Yuvendra also says, what's the fastest you ever drove or been in with a driver? The fastest I've ever driven, I'm trying to remember the exact, I think it was 155 is the fastest that I've ever been. There's a couple instances. The first was a long time ago when I was more of an idiot, when I did it in a first generation CTS-V that a friend had. And then in the Legacy GT, I maxed that out at 135 was its top speed. I did that. The Bullet's only ever gone to 125 because I've gotten more conservative in my old age. And what else? On the press launches, I was up to, I believe, 140 or so in the CT5V Blackwing, I think. I'm trying to think if I've ever gone faster than that in a press vehicle. Definitely not in a press vehicle that I've had loaned to me, but on media drives, in track driving, I don't think I've ever gotten beyond Yeah, I don't think I've even hit 150 on any tracks ever. But as far as riding in vehicles, I did 175 a long time ago with an old friend in their Lamborghini Gallardo Superleggera as a passenger. And then I also rode shotgun with who was then the current head engineer of SRT in a Viper ACR in the rain. We hit like 175, I believe, on I think it was at VIR or Summit Point Raceway, one or the other. That was wild. I would have been terrified in that if it wasn't the actual lead engineer of the Viper ACR driving me in that. So that's the fastest. I've never joined the 200 mile per hour club yet. Maybe someday I will, but I don't have a huge burning desire, honestly, to do that unless it's a very controlled, safe environment. Yeah, had some fun times in cars for sure. And let me see here. I see Fasal says, "Hey Matt, please shout out my name as I've been your fan since 2012. Your old channel name was Subaru's fan, and at that time I had a 2006 Subaru Impreza. I really loved it. Still owns the car. That's awesome. You still have it though, and thank you so much for all the years of support here. Over 10 years now. I really appreciate it. I've seen a lot of people commenting that they've been here, since the beginning or since those early days, and it just blows me away. And I just really appreciate, because I know, especially these days, you guys have a lot of choices as far as, channels you can watch. There's never been, more channels out there than there are now. And I mean, especially in the car review world of the past 3 or 4 years, it's really blown up. I mean, there's so many more. And you have Yavinder. I mean, I remember, so many of you who've been commenting for years and years. I really appreciate it. It still just blows me away, and I will be forever grateful. And yeah, and that's why I'd love to see the channel grow and stuff. But I do know that I have that core group of you who always support. And I wish that was enough, to keep the channel going. It's just trying to appeal to the broader audience is just what you got to do to stay alive out there. And so hopefully, that improves here in 2023. And JT Kent says the weekly updates is where he gets all the automotive news. Keep it up. I appreciate that. Thanks for watching. That's another thing that blows me away. How many of you love the weekly updates so much and make it part of your Friday routine, your Saturday routine, or whatever. It's always just blows me away. And I'm so thankful to have so many of you who enjoy the channel and support it. And Jay says, I think for me, I've watched you first as my favorite YouTuber for car reviews, and second longest is Redline with Sophion. Yeah, he's awesome as well. Sophion and I are good friends, and yeah, he started I think about 10 years ago as well. And yeah, he it's always fun kind of comparing notes about how we both kind of got started around the same time. There's a lot of us who kind of around 2012 is when we kind of started kicking off our channels, and that's kind of around when you could actually start making a little bit of money on YouTube, and they started doing the monetization stuff a little bit more and all that. And so it's crazy how some of us though have been on here for 10 years. It's pretty wild. Time flies. And Raphael says it's a real routine: get home from work, work out, then dinner, and weekly update. I appreciate that. I'm so glad you guys enjoy it. And yeah, I know. I also I'd like to find some way to make it a podcast this year too, and help it to be a little bit more practical for people who can't sit down in front of a TV or their phone and don't want to have YouTube Premium or whatever, which allows you to play audio in the background. But if I can find a way to monetize a podcast here this year, so that I'm not just working for free with a podcast version, I'd love to do that as well, to kind of help other people that just don't have time to sit down and watch a 30-minute YouTube video, but they can maybe listen to something in the car or something like that. I'm still trying to find a way to maybe make a podcast version of the weekly update work here this year. And Rafi says, yeah, we're all pretty similar with our tastes. I watched Matt and Sophie on around the same time 10 years ago. That's awesome. Yavinder says, have you ever thought of making a second YouTube channel? I've noticed that new channels are growing. Yeah, that's been kind of a I'm trying to think of the word. It's kind of been like not a trend, but it seems like it's an interesting thing where it seems like YouTube is trying to push newer channels a little bit more, and that maybe some of us older channels are a little bit disadvantaged as a result. Because I mean, there's some of these new car review channels that have come on the scene in the past few years, where they have a third of the subscribers that I do, and they do way more views. And I think I was actually even talking to David Patterson about this several times, over the past several years, where, he's convinced that it was the notification bell that screwed everything up, because that changed the YouTube algorithm. So like subscriptions didn't really make much of a difference anymore. And it was like, well, you had to have the notifications on in order to like actually be notified of the channel. And it seems like subs have gotten a little bit better now, where they do seem to push stuff still to the sub feed fairly well. Though I know I've many of you who also say like my stuff never comes up in the sub feed for you anymore, or on recommendations. They have to go manually type in my name in order to see my channel, which is crazy. And YouTube still like says that doesn't happen, and they still are like playing dumb on that one. But as far as second channel, it'd be fun to try just to see, just for kicks, like, hey, if I did do a brand new channel and did the same exact thing, but I just wasn't a channel that was from 10 years ago, would it do better? If I had more time to like play around and see, it'd be something I'd consider doing. But I don't know. I have to actually talk to Alex on Autos, because he just did the brand new EV Buyer's Guide channel, and I'll be curious to see, because he's been around a good long while too. I'll be curious to see, if he finds that channel gets views easier and grows easier than his, main channel, and try and see how other people's experiences are before I, invest the time commitment to maybe do something like that. But it's just so hard to get subscribers to then resubscribe to a new channel. Obviously, those of you who are watching these, live streams, and those of you who support the channel a lot, they will obviously, you guys will come over and subscribe. But beyond a few hundred people, trying to rebuild, a viewer base might be kind of tough. But it's certainly something that's on the table. Trust me, if my back's up against the wall and the channel keeps declining, I mean, everything is a possibility and something I'm open to trying, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, I see we have a new super chat here from, I'm not going to probably pronounce your name right. I apologize. I'm terrible with pronunciations. But it says, Happy New Year to you and your family, Matt. Here's to a strong year for everyone in your channel. Thank you. It says, hope things improve so we can have your content for a long time to come. I very much appreciate that. Thanks for watching and supporting, and yeah, for the super chat as well. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great 2023 as well. And I see Fasel says EV channel. Yeah, an electric car channel. Again, we'll see how Alex's channel does. That would probably be the best candidate for a second channel, just because my electric vehicle reviews don't usually get the best views anyway. So if I, took a hit on the views on those, that could make sense. It would be less detrimental, overall than, doing, a different type of channel, and would kind of separate those two groups as well, which might make sense. So that's certainly one of the things that I have considered, especially seeing, again, Alex and others going in that direction. Whenever I did rebrand the Matt Maran motoring thing, though, in 2017, I kind of, chose that name to future-proof myself, considering, there's a lot of other channels that have like, the red line thing or the engine thing, or there's some type of, engine-related name in their, channel name there. And with Matt Maran Motoring, obviously electric vehicles have motors. So I wanted to include motoring there so that it was, yes, it applies to gas vehicles, and, motoring is a thing that's been around for over 100 years. But then it's also, if I'm talking about electric motors exclusively in 10 years, it's something that still could make sense, as I'm Matt Maran Motoring, so I kind of feel like I future-proofed myself for the electric thing pretty well with that. But yeah, it could make sense to, split off the channels, especially considering how, if it continues to go down the same road it has, with electric vehicles being more and more polarizing and more political and all this stuff, then it might make sense to just be like, okay, let's just separate these two groups and do two totally separate kind of, approaches there, and, try and appeal to both. And that way, people that don't like the stuff don't see it in their sub feed, and people who are offended by gas guzzlers, they don't have to see that in their sub feed, and everyone's happy. Hopefully, we'll have to see. So that is certainly a strong candidate. And yeah, Mr. Kreifels also started a new channel for EVs as well. Jazz mentioned, which is true. Yeah, and I actually was just talking to him, because if you saw in the Prius video, he was my drive partner, and I was talking to him a little bit. We always like to compare notes. All of us YouTubers, like, hey, like, how's your channel doing? What are your struggles? And a lot of times, we have a lot of the same issues and annoyances and things like that. And I think he's seen so far that the electric stuff, I think, is doing well for him, and I think it makes sense. He also, though, I think has more of a base for that, considering he's got the Prius, and he has a lot of Prius fans who probably would be more into the EV. So I think his audience is more likely to also support an EV channel versus mine, where I feel like I have some EV fans, but not a ton. And so it'd be really kind of starting from the ground up again, for the most part. But like Jazz mentions, he doesn't watch second channels very much. And Goth Rocker also says, yeah, focus on this channel. Yeah, I think that's really the main thing. If I do start to really see, though, that, there's a need to maybe split things off, and, maybe I will. But I think in the meantime, I got to just, put everything on this channel for sure. And Jay says, it's crazy how I've been watching YouTube car reviewers like you and Sophion since I was 11 or 12. I'm only 22. That's awesome. I'm hoping that, we help to cultivate, the automotive passion and stuff, and made that appealing as well. And I appreciate that, and it's just awesome to see. And Omar says, will you branch out to car accessories like car shampoos or waxes, also more TikTok videos soon? TikTok is possibly on the table. I'm waiting to see, because legally it looks like people are trying to get rid of TikTok and ban it and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, if you see, I do have a TikTok. Someone already took the Matt Moran motoring name, so I am Matt Moran _ motoring on there. And I just re-uploaded some of my Instagram reels, and they didn't seem to really do very well on TikTok. I may do a little bit more. Honestly, I want to go more into the reels and YouTube shorts this year, because one, Instagram pays me for the reels. They don't pay me very much, but they at least pay me a little bit, so it's not a complete waste of time from a time money standpoint. And the YouTube shorts, they're going to start monetizing in February. So those are probably going to be the two that I'm going to focus on more. And I think also it makes sense. I know that you can get a lot of people that probably will go over from TikTok to YouTube, but if I'm actually able to get the shorts doing well, then that'll really help, because it's all baked into the same platform. It's a little bit of an easier transition. And that's part of why, like, for example, with the YouTube memberships, I chose to do that instead of like Patreon or something like that, because Patreon is like, okay, I got to go to a different site. And then it's like trying to integrate everything is more messy versus having everything on one, thing. YouTube's really good. Google's really smart about how they've kind of, had everything all under one roof, and did a really good job with that, so that it makes more sense to, just kind of stick to one, umbrella, I guess. But as far as the accessories, I wouldn't mind doing car wash videos. That's something people have asked me for years. The problem is that our new house we moved into here back in 2021, there is no water line in the garage. And if I need to run water to the driveway, I got to run it from the side of the house, and I have to use a super long hose, and then my water pressure ends up sucking, and it's like almost unusable for washing a car. So, I'm going to probably hopefully put in a water line in the garage here this year, and actually be able to hand wash my car again, because I really miss doing that. Just from a personal standpoint, I just really think that's like a fun enthusiast thing to do, is wash your own car, and I miss it. So maybe if I can, do all that, and can actually start doing car washes again in the driveway, then I can, do some videos on my favorite products. Because I don't really use very many products, so I can't really say like this is the best one out there, unless I just want to like, get some Amazon links for, money purposes. But I don't want to just, support stuff that I don't actually use. So I want to, vet the stuff first, make sure it's good before I mention my favorites, and go from there. But something I'd like to do for sure. And Sato Crypto says, please don't ever stop the weekly news. I plan to do them as long as I can continue to keep doing the channel, for sure. I love doing them. I'm personally fascinated as well to keep up on all the news every week. And obviously, again, the support from you guys is really the one thing. I mean, if you've watched over the past several years, there were a few times where I considered not doing them, and just kind of quitting them, because they haven't really grown much over the past 10 years. If you look back at a weekly update, like when I was in my BRZ 10 years ago, they get more views. They had more views back then than they do now most of the time. But, I'm hoping someday maybe it catches on and I actually start to get some real momentum there. But in the meantime, I'm just so happy that it's, enough to, entertain so many of you. But I plan to keep doing it as long as I do the channel. And David says, monthly bourbon run to talk about stuff that ticks you off. Yeah, I actually have a name for these. I won't share it, but I have an idea for a new video series that is just me kind of sharing my opinion. The problem is, again, like, it's this thing, and this is maybe where a second channel could come in handy, because on this channel, I want to be professional. I want to be neutral, objective. because I think that's very important from a reviewer standpoint. And mixing in personal stuff, I mean, I do a little bit with, my personal cars and, stuff just to, again, give kind of consumer advice. But I've been really, trying to be more professional on this channel, which might be part of why it's declined, honestly, because I think a lot of people did prefer the personal stuff. But, you know, it's one of those things. I'm a very outspoken person in reality and in real life. I mean, I will, state my opinion and, obviously I'm not like a jerk about it, but I have no problem ranting about, stuff that I'm passionate about. But, and I've done that a little bit in the weekly updates where I have like a little, rants, about something in the weekly update, but doing videos where I just kind of share my opinion about something that's annoying me, is something I've certainly considered. I honestly, like, I was going to do a video on the Integra whenever everyone was so mad about the Integra, and I was like, why is anyone surprised about the Integra? Like, this is always what I was expecting the Integra to be, and things like that. And there's some other stuff recently where it'd probably be an unpopular opinion, but I could totally do opinion videos and just rant about stuff and just make a bunch of people mad. But I don't know if I want to go down that route. But maybe someday on a second channel or something. But if there's stuff that I think would have a lot of support and would probably be a popular opinion, I am considering doing some opinion videos this year of, maybe some observations or maybe even just stuff like the Integra, where, it's an unpopular opinion, but it's not something that's political or something that's, politicized, I guess I should say, like the electric stuff is, things like that. If it's something like the Integra, I could just go off and be like, look, like, this is what it is, and just kind of, state my case, and that's it. So, something I'm considering doing more of for sure. And that is, I actually had that on my list of like alternative video ideas that I'm thinking about doing here in 2023. And Goth Rocker, thank you so much for the super chat here. He says, Matt, happy new year. Thanks for the weekly updates. Hope this year is better for all of us. I watch every Friday. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. Hopefully the Lincoln Continental is treating you well. And I'm hoping to review one of those again someday as well. And Jay says, watching the videos of you riding with Sophion or Alex on accelerations is definitely a good double thumbs up from your reactions. Yeah, it's always fun to have any of those guys as drive partners. It's always so much fun. I haven't been on a drive program with Sophion in a while as far as being drive partners. I always see him, but usually he has his videographer Rob with him. And so the way it works on the media drives, if you have a videographer, then you don't need a drive partner. And so usually, they have their videographers, and they I don't get to ride with Sophion like I used to, unfortunately. But it's always great seeing him at these events. Same with Alex. And Two says, I think Matt needs a Christmas special where he does a trip and reviews cars during a road trip. We'll call it Matt Trek. Yeah, it's, and I've done a couple like trips. Like I did that Colorado trip in 2018 where I, reviewed a bunch of different things and posted that up. But it'd be fun to do a little bit of a road trip. It's just, again, the family thing. I just wouldn't want to be away from the family for a long, period of time. It's even tough being away from the press, launches that I go on and stuff. And that's only like, 72 hours usually, something like that. But yeah, I'd love to do. I mean, I think this year for sure, I'm going to get in the Bullet. And as long as gas prices aren't crazy, I'm going to finally review all these cars that have been waiting for me. I have so many cars that have been waiting for me to review all over the country. And I'm just going to get in the Bullet and just like drive and just go to these places. And, I got like a ton of stuff in Washington, D.C. waiting for me that I've been wanting to review. I got a ton of stuff all over the place that I've been wanting to review. So I think I'm really going to try and do more of those personally owned vehicles here this year. Goth Rocker, thank you so much for another super chat here. He says, Matt, if you're ever in Northeastern PA, you can review my near mint 2017 Lincoln Continental. Add it to your video. Enthusiasts love them, especially easily gain 100,000 subscribers. Yeah. Like I said, I like a lot of cars. I have Subarus to Lincolns. That's awesome. The Continental's got to be such a great daily driver, I'm sure. And thank you so much for the very generous super chat as well. And, yeah, I'll have to let you know if I'm ever in Northeastern PA. I was there, when was that, 2020 or 2021? Yeah, 2021, but not sure when I'll be back anytime soon. But I was up in Scranton, and it was very nice. See, we have this spammer here again. I got to hide them again. I literally hid the entire usernames. They like made a new username to spam again. That's wild. Anyway, and we see what else? Adam says, I think a fun way to get people to watch all your videos until the end is to have a short blooper reel of outtakes from that video. Yeah, I know that's something others have done in the past as well. The only like downside of that is increasing the video length, which I think, especially in this TikTok era, the shorter I can get a video, the better. I mean, I really do some aggressive cuts to try and get this stuff down as short as I possibly can. And Yeah, like Simple and Yummy, just I see his comment also says TikTok is super dangerous for attention span. So, I mean, that's really one of my focuses in 2023 is get these videos shorter. They gotta be shorter. I cannot do 30-minute car reviews anymore. Like as much as I can talk about a car for hours on end, like I cannot do it like in these videos. It just turns too many people off. And I mean, I'm really busy myself. And I mean, I have a watch later playlist on YouTube that's over 400 videos long. And guess which ones I watch out of that playlist? It's the short ones. I have time to, maybe watch one or two videos while I'm eating my lunch or something, and it's always I'm watching stuff that's under 10 minutes long. And I don't think I can get to under 10 minutes, but if I can just at least get them under 20, I think that is a good start to really just trying to boil down to just the bare essentials, no fluff, no ums and knows and all these other filler words that I use. Just try and really get concise and good with presenting, and hopefully I get that. But I mean, blooper reels would be fun. The thing with me too with bloopers, I used to have funnier bloopers, but these days I'm usually in such a time crunch filming these reviews that if I do screw up, like I just annoy myself and I just get flustered and just like I'm just like, oh, I just gotta focus and like bang this out. And I just gotta like be more serious. Unfortunately, there are some times where I have some spare time and I can kind of like relax and goof around a little bit, but that's rare. On most of these press launches, especially, it's like I'm running around. Like half these times, like the way these press launches work, I mean, there's two different ways they do them. Some car companies, they will have like, okay, you start at your hotel in the morning, you drive 2 hours to some lunch spot, and it's like a little mini road trip in the car you're reviewing, and then you have lunch, and then you drive 2 hours back. And for the print journalists and the guys who just can actually like drive and enjoy themselves and don't have to like set up cameras and film and get a bunch of million shots, for them it's great. But a lot of the car companies recently have been doing newer stuff where they do have like a home base where they have, okay, here's a stationary car, you all can just do your stand-up shots in front of the car here, and we have like 3 drive loops, and you can do a short one if you want to just get a quick little sample of a car, or if you want to do a dynamic route, there's one of those with a good back road, or if you want to do a highway drive, here's a highway route. And they do that kind of stuff. Toyota does those primarily, and Honda and a few others do a little bit of that sometimes too, but mostly it's Toyota that does those, and those are really nice because it gives me a little bit more time. But honestly, even on some of those, I'm usually so busy that a lot of times I skip lunch. I don't even eat lunch because I'm so busy, like running, and it's a mad dash. I'm like, I got to film this and this. I got to film, 50 interior shots of all this B-roll and film all the exterior B-roll, film my thoughts outside, make sure I get enough footage on the inside, and cover everything. And usually I just don't have enough time. And so whenever I'm running around like that, I can't be goofy. And actually, I don't know if you guys follow Alex on Auto's channel. I saw he just did a blooper reel video, which I watched because guess what, it was less than 10 minutes long. And in his blooper reel, he's like goofing around, and that was on the Civic Type R launch event. And I'm like, man, I'm so jealous that he had that much time on the Type R event to goof around like that, because me, I was like in that same spot trying to film as fast as possible, and then I had to hurry up and go out on track and get as many track sessions in as I could. It's just all way too high stress to do bloopers, unfortunately, at least for me. And Rafi says, I think I've seen almost all of your live streams and haven't seen spam for a long time. Yeah, it's been pretty rare. So maybe we're doing something right here. If I'm starting to get spam comments in the live streams, maybe it's actually getting a popular enough that I'm warranted spam comments. I've made it with the live streams. So that's good. Jay says, I honestly really like the build up you used to do with the Super X Fan days, talking about the body lines and how the car looks to the interior, and then the best part, which is the acceleration runs. Yeah, and that used to be really effective, and I think that helped as far as retention, because that's the thing is YouTube wants people to watch as long as possible. They want you to stay on the platform as long as possible. If YouTube had it their way, they would have a continuous stream of videos playing for you 24/7, 365 days out of the year. So the longer that you are watching the video, this is why I've said if people want to help a video do well or help the channel to do well, watch it until the end. Even if you get bored halfway through, minimize it, mute it, and then forget about it and let it play through. Man, we got more spam here. This is impressive. I've really made it this time, guys. We got so many spammers here. I think I think it's the same accounts. So anyway, but yeah, so I think as far as your comment there, it made sense, and it was, people had to wait and watch later in the video for that that excitement of the acceleration reaction. But I think these days, and actually there's been talk how YouTube is doing more autoplay here, and you've seen this with like Netflix now doing autoplay, and there's some growing consensus that like the first 5 or 10 seconds of the video will now be like the new thumbnail, where thumbnails won't even be important anymore, because if everything is just auto playing every time you're scrolling anywhere, then no one sees thumbnails anymore. And you're really going to have to be like, wow, let's like make a movie trailer for the first 10 seconds to like get people as excited as possible so that they will actually click through or let that autoplay continue to play. And so for me, that means front loading the fun. That's what I call it, where I'm going to look, immediately start with the acceleration reaction, immediately start with like, whoa, look at how crazy this is, and just try and keep it as impressive as I possibly can. And really just, and then that way, those people will hopefully stick around a little bit longer. Then the job is, of course, keeping them engaged beyond that. But, I think I think I can't afford to, make people wait till later in the video for the payoff anymore, because it's just people don't have the attention span for it like they used to. So this is all the behind, inner workings of YouTube, and so all the things we got to think about as YouTubers to try and keep our videos to have the best chance possible of being seen with the algorithm. And Rafi says he thinks 20 minutes is perfect, about the length of any episode of a TV show. Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's kind of the intention here, hopefully. And K Cap says, must be nice to be a print card journalist. Enjoy the perks and free lunches while your job is on borrowed time. Yeah, I'm very jealous of them, because honestly, I mean, it also would be nice, I think there's definitely a strength to the print journalism still, because you really have time to ruminate on your thoughts. Versus, I mean, I could do a voiceover later and be like, okay, well, now I drove this vehicle a week ago. I'm thinking about it some more, and I can add some more thoughts. And there are some times where I do have a little bit of a voiceover like that. And I'm actually planning to do more of that here in this year. But I think, I am just jealous of the fact that they can actually just enjoy themselves and enjoy what they're doing and where they're at, and maybe even do a little bit of sightseeing if they're lucky. Whereas me, it's like, it's all blur, and people are like, oh, like you were in San Diego. Did you go to this place or whatever? And it's like, nope, didn't see anything. Don't remember anything. Didn't take anything in, I was like, oh, hey, look, there's the ocean. Bye. And I kept going, it's like, it's all just a giant blur usually. And so, other questions. Adam says, what a coincidence. 69 Mega was my nickname in college. That's funny. Good for you. That's hilarious. And Rafi says, nowadays people don't have the attention span anymore to sit and watch a full episode. Very true. And this is, I mean, network TV's been, fumbling with this for years, of being terrified about declining viewership on anything. I mean, no one has cable anymore. No one does any of these things, and it's getting tough out there to keep anyone's attention for anything. And I think TikTok is just terrifying everyone. I think that's why I think a lot of people would be very happy to see TikTok become banned here in America, and it certainly, I think, would maybe this is getting into a political thing, so I won't go down this road too far, but I think, it's dangerous to see how short attention spans are getting, and I don't think it's good for society. So I hope that, there's something to level out, or I guess counteract the TikTok attention span, shortening that's happening here. I don't know. I just don't think it's going to send us into a very good direction. But anyway, two says, so going back to your rant channel idea, there's a YouTuber who, Hostra Biographics, where he's professional, but he also has a channel called Brain Blaze, where he just goes off hilariously. Matt going off. Yeah, I mean, that's something I'd like to do. Again, if the channel was in a position where, I had a buffer, I had a cushion, I didn't have to worry about fighting for my career here like I am currently, I would certainly be more open to doing that. And you'll see, I mean, there's a lot of other YouTubers who do just say their opinion. They're very polarizing with all that stuff, and they don't care, but that's because they have over 1 million subscribers. And, if they lose, a few thousand subscribers, it doesn't matter to them. They're already rolling in money and, views and stuff. And so, it's just, they have that luxury to be able to say whatever they want to say. I just feel like even if it's a second channel, it would still, it would still be me, so that could still reflect poorly on, the other channels and stuff. So it would be fun. Trust me, I would love to make a rant channel or just even rant on this channel about everything that comes to my mind. But I think that also get annoying and people kind of get, you know, just I think some people also go too far with that kind of stuff. And again, it kind of makes it more about me too. And I don't want the channel to be about me. I want it to be about the cars and giving people advice, not what every waking thought I have is, like it's just, I feel like it's not, my opinions on certain things aren't important for the channel and for other people to, even though it might be entertaining, I feel like it's not a valuable contribution to the internet, if that makes any sense sometimes. And other questions here. Carlos says, "Hey Matt, how far in advance do you get your media drive invitations?" Just curious. It depends. Because so typically, I would say on average, I get them about a month in advance. So that's usually when I, see stuff. Interestingly, though, here for 2023, I've been getting some save the dates like way earlier. Like I've got a save the date for the end of March already. And even like trying to see what I can say because I'm not sure how much is out there about the one thing. But I will say there's also another company who sent me a save the date like basically 2 months in advance. And it was like way before anyone else had sent anything. And it's just for a reveal. It's not even for like an actual review thing. So there are some that are doing more, but then there's been times where either I fell through the cracks or maybe I'm on the B list of invites where I've had some stuff come through like 2 weeks prior, where it's like, oh, we have like an extra slot or two we can fill. Let's invite Matt. So there's been some of that stuff as well in the past, especially whenever the channel was not quite as big. But even still recently, there was one where I think I only had, about a 2 week lead on it. I can't remember which one it was exactly, but that's usually the latest, amount of time typically is, 2 weeks, but I'd say a month is typically what it is. So Jay also says, would you consider doing more collabs with That Dude in Blue in 2023? Ride along reviews would be enjoyable and benefiting for both your channels as well. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly something I'm open to. And I actually was able to be drive partners with David on GR Corolla and Supra, manual Supra this past year. The thing with that one was, though, that was a Toyota event that was interesting because they, didn't have enough cars to actually let us drive them to the track, which is why we didn't get any actual street driving time in the GR Corolla or the manual Supra. So they just gave us, they had regular GR86s and GR Supras, and it was the automatic, Supra. And so me and David we were like, well, yeah, we're drive partners. And for that one, it's easy because we didn't need to film anything because we weren't covering, the Supra that we'd already covered, or the GR86. So for that one, we actually were able to just like have fun and talk. And like, so we drove out to the track, it was like an hour away or whatever, and just got to like talk and catch up and stuff. So that was fun. But we didn't actually have to do anything on camera together. So we could have thrown a camera up and just kind of recorded our conversation or something like that. But it's also kind of nice to just, again, compare notes behind the scenes and stuff like that. But certainly be open to doing stuff with David again in 2023. It's always great. I actually came across him again at the Civic Type R event. We were able to chat for a good while at dinner there for that as well. So had some good times there with David this past year. And I'm really thankful. Talk about people going way back. I mean, me and him go way, way back to probably 2012. And it's so cool to, have been able to watch his rise as well. It's been a lot of fun. And yeah, Jazzbo says rant is not the charming Matt we know. And that's kind of the thing is I want to, keep it classy and professional and there's some danger into getting too personal and, just making it, a little less, I don't know what the word is, but, not like I have like any kind of personality on the channel here. I am myself, but, I just, again, there's just some things that I think, it's just not necessary to share your opinion about everything online. Adam says, start a Patreon for your rants and only they get to see it. I'd pay for that. That's an idea for sure. But I feel like even with like the members and the Patreon stuff, I feel like there's also kind of a split there as far as some of the polarizing things that I would maybe say, where again, like I don't know if I want to ruffle feathers. I'm not I'm not someone who enjoys pissing people off either. So even though I might enjoy ranting, and I do that, from time to time, again, in a limited manner on the weekly updates, I wouldn't want to upset people. So, I'm fine keeping that kind of stuff to myself. But it's an intriguing idea. But again, I just feel like no matter how I package it, there's going to be people that'll be upset and will probably like me a little bit less as a result. And I just would rather avoid that, I think. Rafi says, I feel like I haven't seen pilot reviews yet. Is there an embargo pending for the reviews? I see dealership videos only. Very interesting you bring that up. I'm also kind of in the dark and confused as well about pilot. So I was under the impression that there was going to be a drive event in December, and then it seems like it got delayed, which I'm not sure why, because clearly production is fine and they're shipping them to dealers. Honda's been kind of a little bit behind with the media drives recently, where like we're reviewing stuff as it's at the dealer, which is great from a consumer advice standpoint, because it's like great, like everyone's actually now seeing them on dealer lots. They're looking for reviews, they're looking for advice, and we have them right here coming out brand new. And it's kind of great. And it's also great because there's no, from a PR standpoint, they don't have any loss in hype, because it's like, hey, like here's this brand new car, and by the way, you can go buy one today at your dealership. And it's a great conversion for the car company, because again, they don't have to worry about like, oh no, this person was interested in the Prius 3 months ago and now they can't find one until the summer and they're not going to be interested anymore. So there's some of that. So, but as far as your question about the pilot, I don't know. I think they might be bundling it with an Accord drive, which I heard could be January or February. I haven't seen any invites. I can say that I have. Honda's not 100% as far as I don't get an invite for every single thing from Honda typically. So it could just be that I'm not in the know and other reviewers might be. But as far as my knowledge goes, I have no clue, but there's nothing on the horizon that I know of. I know there should be something on the horizon, but I don't have an invite for anything myself. So it might be worth asking some of the other YouTubers that do go to all the Honda stuff and see if they might have some info. I could also just text them and see for my own curiosity, because I have been wondering about the pilot, because I know there's a lot of interest out there for it, and it's one I definitely want to review. So yeah, I'll have to see what happens with that. But as far as I know, yeah, the only thing I know about is Mazda. So nothing from Honda right now. SLMD Sedans, thank you so much for the super chat here. He says, hey Matt, did you eat any tamales this year? I don't think I did, actually. Yeah, I don't get too many opportunities to eat Mexican, unfortunately. I love it. I love anything Mexican, is usually up my alley, but I don't get too many opportunities to eat Mexican, unfortunately. So I haven't had any tamales recently. And two says, Matt, what's the funniest malfunction you've experienced with a press car? This question brought to you by Race Shadow Legends. Not really. So funniest malfunction. It's very rare I have a malfunction in a car. And I don't know if any of them are funny typically that I've had. There's probably something, but it'd probably take me more than a few seconds here to think of what it is. The one interesting thing, which I mentioned at the end of the Palisade video, if you watch the 2023 Palisade video that I did, was that like the stop-start system caused it to misfire, because at one point I did a very quick off the brake onto the gas thing where I was like, I stopped at a stop sign, but then someone waved me on, so I had to immediately get back onto the gas. And then that caused the car to have a misfire until I started and I did a cycle. But that wasn't really funny. I was just like, why is this brand new press vehicle running weird and misfiring? But that was it. So yeah, and Rafi says makes sense about the Accord and Pilot being together. Yeah, it does, but it kind of doesn't too, because the Pilot's already at dealers, and I don't think Accords are showing up at dealers until I think I heard maybe late this month. So I mean, typically it'd be nice to have the reviews go live before they get to dealerships, at least from a selfish standpoint, because now we are competing with, like you said, there's dealer videos out there, and so instead of us being able to have the first videos, which unfortunately on YouTube, it's all about being the first, having it out there before anybody else. But now all these people are like, oh, I see the pilots are at dealers. Let me go watch a video. Oh, it's a video from Pittsburgh Honda or whatever. And then it's, then they get the information there. And, so for that very reason, you might see pilot videos just bomb, because all of us that post them, we're going to be late to the game. And I mean, I'm sure they'll still get decent views, but I think a lot of the general public that isn't a fan of any certain YouTuber is just gonna be like, oh, cool, they showed me where the cup holders are at and how much horsepower it has. I'm set. So we'll have to see. But yeah. And Raphael says the tough question: will it get more views than the Type R? Probably. Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, I hope not, but I'm all for more reviews or more views. Yeah, no, it probably will. But again, it's very unpredictable because I think the Palisade was the worst performing video of 2022 for me. I think that's at like 4,000 views. Like that one was actually probably a waste of time to film. But I mean, Palisades sell really well. I was like, oh, well, this is gonna probably at least do decent, and then it totally just failed. So yeah, with being behind the ball here on the Pilot. And the fact that it's not what most of my subscribers typically like, again being a three-row crossover, it may do terrible on the channel, but I think it's worth a try because CRV Hybrid really surprised me with doing really well. So I'll do it either way, and if it's a waste of time, it's whatever. It's one of those things, again, you got to throw crap at the wall and see what sticks because you never really know. Jay says, did you mention before that you do more collaborations with South Park Mitsubishi and Tom Henry Chevy this year? I think that could be a great treat for us OG watchers of old days. So South Park Mitsubishi, I will potentially do more there if they have any inventory that's worth filming. Right now they don't. I am doing more stuff with Harrison Auto Sales this year, and I'll actually be filming some stuff there this week as well. So stay tuned for more videos from there. South Park Mitsubishi, they still don't stock very many exciting vehicles anymore, so it'll just come down to if there's something I think is worth filming. Tom Henry Chevy actually is no more. They were sold off to a big conglomerate. The dealership still stands, and it's still a business, but it's not Tom Henry Chevy. So my connections to that dealer have been dissolved. I don't know the new owners, and GM is pretty good with invites and press vehicles and stuff. They're not the quickest at getting me stuff sometimes. That's just because of the constraints of where I'm at, though, unfortunately. But I don't really have a huge need to do anything at the Chevy dealer anymore. It'd be fun though. It's just a shame the dealership they sold during the pandemic and cashed out, and I don't blame them for it. So, but yeah, so not going to be doing any there unfortunately anymore. And Blackout 5.0 fan says, hi, Matt, may I please ask what happens when, just in case, a journalist crashes a press vehicle? How is it different if it is their fault versus if it's not their fault? So it doesn't happen too often, but I've been on events where things have happened, and I've also heard about other events where things have happened. I got to be careful what I say because I don't know how much stuff is public knowledge about some of this. But so as far as your question, when a journalist crashes a press vehicle, it depends. If it is not their fault, the car companies have no problem. Obviously, it sucks for them, and they're down a car, which really throws a wrench in their plans typically because they really count on having X amount of cars because they brought X amount of people that need to get into X amount of seats. And if you're down a car, that's bad news for them and really, is a nightmare for them. But if it's not your fault, someone hits a deer, some other person hits into them or whatever, it is what it is. There's not much they can do. They can't be mad at them for it, if it is their fault, that is a whole another ball of wax. And, I think you've seen even like Jalopnik way back when they crashed a Camaro on an event. And I think they were kind of not in a good place with GM for a while, after that. It depends on the nature of the crash. Again, if it's something, where it's just an honest mistake, especially, if you're, just driving on the street and, something pops up or there's something that, throws you for a loop and you make a mistake, people make mistakes. If you're not being reckless, you're not being stupid, again, they can't be mad at you. But, if it's like, I heard about a crash on track in 2022 by someone, I don't know who, I actually didn't ever find out who, but someone crashed a car on a track event last year. And it was just, they were driving beyond their limits in a car that they obviously were not familiar with because it was a brand new vehicle. And I heard that, that wasn't very pleasant. And I've heard that there's journalists that haven't been invited back on stuff. If you are being a deliberate idiot and you screw things up, you're probably not going to get invites, at least not for a while. Again, if it's an honest mistake, it's that's fine. But obviously, these car companies, they don't want to invite idiots. So if you're an idiot and you're out there driving recklessly, either on the streets or on the track, and they see that, whether it's, you don't even have to crash something. If you're just driving stupidly, I mean, even like on the track stuff, if you're on a, one of these media drives and you're driving on the track, they tell you like, don't drop a wheel off onto the grass because if you do, then we're going to inspect the vehicle, make sure, we didn't get debris on the track to make someone else crash. And it's a whole big headache. And they'll pull you aside and be like, look, like you need to check yourself. And sometimes they will like be like, look, you're not doing any more track driving for this event because, you're being irresponsible, things like that. So, I don't know if I've actually witnessed that myself. I know there's been a couple of people that have gone off track. And actually on the Toyota HQ Confidential event last year, there was someone who blew up a clutch on a GR86. And it wasn't the car's fault. And that was kind of funny. So there are some things like that. But again, it comes down to, what were you doing, and all that as far as what the consequences are. But typically, these car companies, again, they also do have, it's their cars, they're kind of writing off a lot of the press vehicles anyway. Some of the stuff, at least the pre-production stuff, ends up getting crushed anyway. So, it might, temporarily screw up their plans, but if it's something that's going to get crushed anyway, they're not, it's not the end of the world. And it's not like you're, ruining something they could have sold or, done something else with later on, so it's it very much depends. So very long-winded answer, but it depends for sure. But definitely something that is strongly frowned upon in any manner, of course. And so Garrett Brown says, what are your thoughts on a refreshed ND3 MX5 in 2024 or complete redesign? I haven't really heard any concrete rumors or reports about any kind of ND3. I think we're close enough to a new generation that I don't know if an ND3 would make sense. I know I've seen some people reporting about that being a possibility. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just out of the loop and I haven't seen, but from what I've seen, it seems like we'll probably just wait for the NE, if that's what they end up calling it, whatever the next generation is, in 2025 or so, is probably when that's going to be due. And just, it'll just keep going for the next few years here with, new paint colors and maybe a special edition or something, and that's about it. But I don't know if they'd be worth doing an ND3, partially because I think the ND2 is still so good already. And as far as, like redoing the interior to be in line with the new Mazda interiors, you don't have much real estate to work with in that interior and stuff. So I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of tough, So I don't know. I think they'll probably just wait for a new version. But I think, I talked about in the weekly update the possibilities for a new version where it's, probably going to be mild hybrid in some form, but they're really focused on keeping it lightweight and probably, doing as much, combustion side as they can with that vehicle. And having it be the last probably gas version of the MX5 most likely, and then keep that going until 2035 or whenever they have to get rid of it, and that's it. And Adam says, I know you had mixed thoughts about the new Mustang. Any change of heart about the all-new Mustang? Well, I saw it in person at the LA Auto Show back in November, and it's still I don't know, like it's fine. I'm not mad about the outside. I think the exterior is fine. I was never really super mad about the exterior. I certainly think they could have done better, but the outside doesn't bother me really that much. The inside is what bothers me. And I saw the interior in person. I didn't get to sit in it, admittedly. It was just, I was able to see it with the door open. But just the fact there's gonna be so many recycled components on the inside, and then the stuff that's new just kind of completely throws out all the heritage things I love about the Mustang interiors with the double brow for the dash and stuff. With all that being gone and just having a bunch of big screens, I mean, again, as a journalist, I am going to be, open-minded. Whenever I review one someday, I'm just gonna say, hey, it's just kind of a personal preference. You like huge screens in your car, don't you? I think the trend is obviously most people do. And so, for those new Mustang buyers, it'll be great. But my heart hasn't really changed, about the new Mustang. I still would never buy one. I'll hopefully drive one this year and maybe, it'll impress me. There's still no chance I'll get rid of the bullet just because it's not a bullet version. I would want dark green paint. I would want no badges. I would want, I love that bullet look. I love flying under the radar with that thing and the more subtle vibe of it. So, I wouldn't consider it, but if they did do a bullet version sometime down the road, in 2027, 2028 or whatever, I still just feel like I wouldn't want that interior. Maybe my mind will change and maybe by 2025 or something, I'll be like, oh man, like this Bullet feels so old inside. I want a new vehicle with new screens, and new Bullet will be right there, and maybe it'll work out. I don't know. I'm not gonna write it off because I hated the Mach-E whenever those first came out with a passion, way more than I hate the 2024 Mustang. And then I ended up buying a Mach-E here this past year. So my heart could certainly change. It's happened before, but as of right now, yeah, no new thoughts on the Mustang. Still not super into it. Um, and Norton says, is the Integra A-Spec Tech car worth the money? Performance numbers make it seem like a turd. Yeah, it comes down to what you value in the Integra. You know, Personally, I would just go for a Civic Si and save the 7 grand. But if you're someone who you really want the moonroof, you really want the adaptive dampers, you really want, the heated seats, whatever the case might be, or you just like the Integra styling better, whatever the case is, or the hatch, which is a huge selling point with the hatch. If any of those things appeal to you and you got the extra 7 grand to spend and it doesn't bother you, I think it's great. But just keep in mind that it's a Civic Si with Acura badges in a lot of ways. And, so it's basically, are you okay with Civic Si performance? If you're not, then that's going to seem like a turd to you as well. I think it's a great little car, and I think the Integra is a great little car as well. It's just you got to be someone who wants a great little car that is just a little bit pricier. But lots of people do that all the time. Look at all the people that buy Audi A3s and Mercedes A classes and BMW 2 Series, the Grand Tourer 2 Series or whatever. People have no problem spending $50,000 for a tiny little car with not much space. The Integra's got way more space than all those Germans have as far as the hatch and stuff goes. So it's actually, I think, a better buy than all of those Germans. But I mean, they have no problem selling A3s and all that kind of stuff. So there's a market out there for it. It just might not be the traditional Honda buyer or something, but I think it certainly makes sense for the right person. But if you're someone like me who doesn't need to have all the luxury features in the world, get a Civic Si, save yourself the money, and still have a great, fun little car. Omar says, once all cars become full electric, what is going to differentiate a muscle car from a regular sports car since they're not going to have a gas engine? Well, I think Dodge is trying to tackle this, with the new Charger EV, where they're planning on having vibrations. They're going to have sound and an actual exhaust system with flaps and pipes and stuff. So I think that there's going to be that to differentiate that experience, but I think the sports cars are going to be more polished and refined and maybe not do as much of that kind of stuff, whereas the muscle thing can be more brash. But I think you're also going to see, muscle cars are typically they're softer, they're bigger, they're heavier. Obviously, electric stuff's all heavy. But I think, seeing, for example, like Porsche doing an electric version of the Cayman that's coming in a few years, like that's still going to be focused on being as light as possible for what they're working with. That's not going to drive anything like the electric Charger is going to drive. So I think there will still be differences. It's just going to be, obviously, power delivery will be pretty similar with them all having, flat torque all the way through and stuff like that. So there will be less differentiation, but I still think there will be differentiation and enough to give them unique feelings and warrant the differences between them, from a marketing standpoint and from an experience standpoint as well. And Big Truck Series Review says, without a Hemi, Dodge is dead. We'll see how it goes over for them. They seem to be convinced that people will come around. They've done. And actually, I was on a conference call with Dodge's CEO and a bunch of other journalists about a month and a half ago or so, where their market research supposedly, I mean, again, who knows if it's just they got lucky with the people that they grabbed or however they conducted this study, but they brought people in for a focus group or whatever, and from the people that they surveyed, I think they said the numbers are foggy, so don't quote me on this, but it's somewhere in between the 35 and 50% region of people who were existing Challenger and Charger buyers that whenever they were shown the electric stuff, the performance of it and how Dodge is going to differentiate it, they said like almost half of those owners would consider an electric version in the future, according to their research. Now, still 50% of your volumes is still going to be a really big hit for Dodge if that turns out to be the case. And then they even get lucky and have 50% of the people switch over. But that's what they believe in right now. And I mean, that's what the numbers have been telling them so far. The market could tell them something completely different once it gets out there in reality. But they're convinced that they can convert a good bit of the Mopar family into the electric thing. Um, and I think that there is some justification to that because you look at, a lot of people just want to have the fastest thing possible. And I've told people for a long time, look, if you're worried about beating people at a red light, go buy a Tesla Model 3 Performance and call it a day. Like done, easy, like, no debate. Like that's it. Like a soccer mom in her Model 3 will smoke most of us, myself included in the bullet, without even trying. I can be sitting there spinning my tires, ripping on the, shifter and driving myself crazy trying to beat a Tesla while they're just yawning, on autopilot, accelerating from a red light. I mean, so, if for the Dodge fans who just want to be the fastest at the drag strip, want to be the fastest at their red light, the electric thing is going to be the best thing for them. And I think, even if they hated it first, the second an electric charger pulls up next to their Hellcat and smokes them without even trying, they might give it a second thought, So again, we'll see, what happens. But I think it'll be interesting to see how the market actually takes it and what happens, I mean, and your point about the pricing there, I mean, they will of course be very expensive. But you said people can't spend 150 on a Tesla Plaid. I'm not talking about the Plaid. I'm talking about a Model 3 Performance, which I believe is like 60 grand. Still expensive, but you can get one used for probably less than that, especially the longer Elon Musk tweets, the more you'll probably be getting a Model 3 cheaper and cheaper. But no, I'm not talking about the super expensive stuff. I'm talking about, fairly affordable stuff that is Hellcat priced that will smoke a Hellcat all day. So anyway, it is what it is. We'll see what happens. But anyway, Steve says, Happy New Year, Matt. Just joined the live stream. You may have already answered this, but was wondering, how do you handle insurance on the cars you review? Interesting question. Thanks for asking, Steve, and thanks for joining. So insurance is handled. So the way that I handle it, there's a few different. Some people are convinced you need to have a massive umbrella policy, to cover millions of dollars, just in case. The way that it, if you look at, so like the press vehicles that I get, we all get a contract we have to sign, and the contract has a bunch of, conditions as far as, don't operate the vehicle in a different country, don't Uber in it, don't, just random things like that. You can say whatever you want, obviously. It's just like the random, like, don't take it to a racetrack without letting us know and stuff like that. So in that contract, they do say like, usually the car is covered by the manufacturer under their insurance. So they will insure their vehicle and stuff. Sometimes it gets a little iffy as far as insuring other people's vehicles if you are the one at fault. But if someone hits me, the car company will, take care of that themselves. And I don't think I even need to involve my insurance company in that. But I do also on my insurance policy have what is called a non-owned car rider, where my insurance coverage also it's the same level of coverage for a vehicle that I'm renting, or in this case, press vehicles, things like that. Because actually the person who's my insurance agent actually was one of the people that used to work at Tom Henry Chevy. And so he's very aware of, my needs and what I need to do. And so we add that on, and then that way I have the same coverage. So if I wreck a press car, it's just like wrecking the bullet, same kind of deal. And, it's handled that way. So that's how that works as far as insurance goes for those. And other questions here. I see we have some more comments from Big Truck, and the sound, not having the sound thing. And that's certainly the thing. There will be people who will always prefer the Hellcat for the sound, but there are also people I think that'll prefer, the electric for the performance as well. And Big Truck says the ego of these Dodge buyers can't handle an EV. They aren't making noise. They aren't being obnoxious. I mean, stereotypes aren't always true either, so there are, I think, some people who just genuinely enjoy the performance of them too, that aren't, pretending to be Vin Diesel when they're driving around. So we'll see. Again, I could be totally wrong. I have no clue what's going to happen. But I think, there are always going to be outliers. Maybe they won't be a large number, but I think there are going to be, some people that, that will work for them. Rafi, thank you so much for a very generous another super chat here. He says, Happy New Year, Matt. Let's hope for an amazing year. Wishing nothing but growth for you. Thank you so much, Rafi. I really appreciate it. Thanks again for being a member. And we only got about 2 minutes left here before we're hitting the 2 hour mark. So we'll cut it off here soon. I'll end with Dorian's question here. He says, have you ever driven or what is your opinion on a Corolla hatchback with the manual transmission? I have. So they had the manuals actually present for the media launch for the Corolla hatchback in 2018. So if you go watch my 2019 Corolla hatchback review, my first thoughts on the manual are in that. I also did spend a week with a manual Corolla hatch. So if you search for like my week in a 2019 Corolla manual hatch, you should see all my thoughts on that. Cliff notes for you though, is that basically it's a decent manual. It's nice that it has the intelligent manual transmission thing, so it kind of helps you with your manual driving. The problem is it has a good amount of rev hang. Maybe there is something tune wise you could do to fix that, but there's a lot of rev hang. That's my one thing. It was a little tricky to be smooth with that manual because there was just so much rev hang that if you're someone who knows how to drive a manual and you're used to like, okay, I'm going to like get off the gas, get on the clutch back and forth, at that usual time, it just was a mismatch almost every single time in the Corolla. And I was just jerking around in that thing just constantly and driving like I, had just picked up a manual yesterday. So it's not the best. It's much better than the GR Corolla. Again, from my limited experience with it, it was totally fine in GR Corolla, no rev hang, no nothing. But in the regular Corolla hatch, definitely a lot of rev hang and not the best. Honda still does a manual hatchback better, in my opinion, with these Civics. But Corolla hatch with a manual is solid, and at least you have the naturally aspirated engine in that, so it's a little bit better from a reliability standpoint, maybe compared to the Civic. But supposedly those Civic turbo motors are doing great, though. I think there was actually someone that just popped up. Someone used one of the new Civics as a medical courier vehicle, which those people drive like 100,000 miles a year or whatever. And there was a Civic with the new 1.5 turbo motor that it was a 2022 Civic. Somehow they had put, I'm trying to remember the number. I think it's 200,000 miles on it. You can look it up. It was all over the internet. But someone put like an insane amount of miles on it and it was fine. Now maybe age will weigh in and, make that a little bit less down the road. But as far as so far, that 1.5T motor seems like it actually holds up really well for high miles. So yeah, we'll see, how that motor holds up. But I think, it would be, I wouldn't hesitate to own one of those new Civic turbos for sure. I think they're great. Anyway, we are at the 2-hour mark here, so I'm going to end it. I see Hanging with Dr. G says more live streams. That's the last thing I will say, that I am planning to do more live streams here this year for sure. I don't know. I'm always going to do at least one a month. I'm going to try and do more though, especially now that we're getting more and more members here. And I think it's a really nice perk of being a member. I, want to kind of do that as a good, reward and a good, reason to be a member. So I'm going to try and do them more. I can't guarantee I'll do more than one a month, but I am going to try and find little maybe pockets in my schedule where I can find, a weekend day or, a weeknight maybe where I can do some. I think weeknights might actually be the best if that works for some of you guys down the road, to maybe do a weeknight live stream for maybe an hour, maybe something a little bit shorter, something like that potentially, just to kind of get on here more often because I love these. I mean, these are great. I love chatting with all you guys on here, and it's always so much fun to interact, in real time and just kind of also be able to talk a little bit more off the cuff, even though it's not, a normal rant. Being able to kind of be, just kind of weighing in, off the cuff, I think is a lot of fun. And hopefully you guys enjoy this as well. And Rafi says, do them like an hour or so I'm not as exhausted. Very true. I think that's definitely the way to go probably here in the future. And Adam says, love the live streams, like having a beer with a friend I haven't met yet. That's what I'm hoping for. That's, I'd love to, get a beer with all of you someday. It'd be a lot of fun. And that is something I am hoping to maybe see if we can do an actual meetup or something here in 2023 as well. It'd be really cool to do some type of, subscriber, hangout event, something like that would be cool sometime. But anyway, thank you all very much for joining. I hope you have a good rest of your New Year's Day here, and I hope you all have a great 2023. I really hope it's a good year for all of us. I know we could all use it, and so keep our fingers crossed that it's a good year for all of us. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining the live stream here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay tuned for some interesting reviews I got coming up here in January. The members have already seen the schedule. We've got some interesting stuff coming up, so stay tuned for some interesting out of the ordinary stuff you might not be expecting from me here this month. So anyway, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.